Good evening and welcome. I call this public hearing to order. I would like to recognize that we are joining from the joining this hearing from areas throughout the Nitchalith and the Coast Salish territories, and I'm coming to you from the Hawaiian Nation. My name is Bob Beckett, and I'm the director for Bamfield electoral area. I'd like to introduce to you this evening the ACRD planning staff, Mr. Mike Erg. And if you could just wave, Mike, I know your name's there, but if you could just wave, nice smile. General Manager of Planning and Development, Alex Dyer. Planning Manager, Alex, thank you. Amy Anaka. Planner, thank you, Amy, and thank you for all your work getting this organized. And Kathy MacArthur, Planning Assistant. Thank you, Kathy. This hearing is being held electronically using Zoom. It is being recorded and is live streaming on our website. Would staff please provide direction and instruction on how to participate in this hearing?
Happy to. Thank you very much. And thank you, everybody, for joining in. I see Stella there, and there may be others joining on the live stream as well. So if you do wish to join the meeting and you're watching the live stream, I'll just highlight that the details on how to connect can be found on the Zoom meeting invite document linked on the webpage. I just want to quickly start off by highlighting the features in Zoom that will help us conduct this public hearing and keep things running smoothly if we can. So if you are participating online, you have the option to either turn on or off your video and mute or unmute your audio, so other meeting participants can see you and hear you. We just ask that if you're not speaking, that you keep your audio muted just to cut down the background noise. These controls are found in the bottom left of your screen on your computer if you're looking at what I'm looking at, or the top right on a tablet or a smartphone if you're connecting that way. There will be an opportunity to speak for all members of the public to speak after staff introduce the OCP amendment bylaws and summarize the agency and First Nation referrals that we've received. When the chair calls upon members of the public to comment on the bylaw, we ask that you either put your hand up or call out that you'd like to speak. Once you've been recognized by the chair or by staff, we ask that you state your name and address, and then followed by your comments or questions that you might have on the bylaw. I'll also highlight that there is a chat feature that's accessed from the controls on your screen if you'd like to make a comment or ask a question at any time. All comments will be addressed by staff during the public hearing, so feel free to add anything in there as we move along while you think of it. These comments, again, will be brought forward when the chair asks for public comments. There will also be a final opportunity prior to the end of the public hearing to ask any final questions or make any final comments on the bylaw. And again, just to highlight that this public hearing is being live streamed right now on the ACRD website, and the recording of the meeting will be made available. Back to you, Bob. Thanks.
Thanks, Alex. The subject of this hearing is bylaw P1445. This bylaw is an official community plan amendment to the existing Bamfield official community plan bylaw P1309. If you have questions or comments about any other related topic, I would ask that you contact regional district staff after this hearing has been terminated. With staff now, please read out the notice of public hearing.
Okay, thank you. A public hearing for residents and property owners within electoral area A, Bamfield, will be held to consider bylaw P1445. This bylaw is an official community plan OCP amendment to the existing Bamfield OCP bylaw P1309. As part of the zoning bylaw review project, amendments are being considered to the 6 ACRD electoral area OCPs to align OCP policies and objectives with the proposed updated zoning bylaw, available online at www.acrd.bc.ca/ZB-review. The public hearing will be held by the director for electoral area A, the alternate director, or the chairperson of the regional district. The board resolution making this delegation, along with bylaw P1445, which includes a detailed list of all amendments to the Bamfield OCP, is available for review online at www.acrd.bc.ca 2022. Planning staff are available to answer questions in person, through email, or by phone during normal office hours, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., Monday through Friday from October 5th to October 18th, 2022, excluding statutory holidays. Now, providing an opportunity for public input is a top priority for the ACRD. Please consider written submissions as an effective means to do so. Anyone who feels their interest in property will be affected by the proposed bylaw will be afforded a reasonable opportunity to be heard. Options include participating in the public hearing by electronic means using Zoom video conferencing or teleconferencing, and/or submitting correspondence to the ACRD. If you wish to participate in the public hearing electronically or by phone, full instructions to do so are available online at www.acrd.bc.ca/events/18-10-2022, or it can be provided by contacting planning staff by email at planning@acrd.bc.ca or by phone at 250-720-2700. This public hearing will be recorded and live streamed on the ACRD website. Written correspondence can be submitted to the ACRD by one of the following methods: hard copy delivered to the ACRD office in person, in the drop slot, or by mail to the planning department at the address below. An email sent to planning@acrd.bc.ca before 4 p.m. October 18th, 2022. Email correspondence will only be considered received if receipt confirmation is provided by ACRD staff, or a fax sent to 250-723-1327 before 4 p.m. October 18th, 2022. And again, fax correspondence will be considered received if receipt confirmation is provided by ACRD staff. All correspondence must be received by the ACRD no earlier than 8 a.m. on October 5th, 2022, and no later than 4 p.m. on October 18th, 2022. Correspondence submitted and/or received outside of these parameters will not be included in the public hearing. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Before we go any further, I see Stella, and welcome, Stella. I'm so glad you joined us this evening. You have your hand up. Do you have a question for staff?
Yeah, I maybe I misunderstood what Alex just said, but did he say that we're closed for comment after today?
No, sorry, that is a bit misleading in the way I read that. So if you want to provide correspondence prior to the public hearing, it has to be received by our office before 4 p.m. You're more than welcome to say anything you want at this meeting, or even submit a written letter or an email or something like that if you'd like to.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for joining us, though.
Okay, so the purpose of this public hearing is to receive input, written and verbal, from any person who believes that their interest in property is affected by the bylaw. The regional board will receive full minutes of this hearing before voting on the bylaw. Staff is taking written minutes and summarize the issues raised. Please speak clearly to ensure accuracy. Now, would staff please introduce the proposal?
Okay, thank you. So I'd be happy to introduce the proposal for us tonight. So what we're dealing with is bylaw P1445, which, as you heard, is an OCP amendment to the existing Bamfield OCP bylaw P1309, which was originally adopted by the board in 2014. The OCP amendment bylaw that we have before us tonight generally includes minor updates to align OCP policies and objectives with the draft updated zoning bylaw. As part of the zoning bylaw review project that we've been working on for a number of years now, all 6 of the electoral area OCPs that we have in Bamfield, Long Beach, and in the rural areas of the Alberta Valley are being amended to align policies with the draft zoning bylaw. The comprehensive rewrite of the ACRD zoning bylaw is not being specifically considered as part of this public hearing, and the zoning bylaw does remain in draft form. So we encourage people to seek that out on the website or contact staff if you'd like to see the most recent version of it and provide your input. We are at the stage where we can adjust things on the zoning bylaw. We do anticipate that the draft zoning bylaw will be considered by the board in the new year. And so, focusing back on this bylaw P1445, I just want to highlight some of the minor amendments that are presented for the Bamfield OCP that we'll be discussing tonight. So we have added policies relating to the construction of docks and moorage facilities and included coastal riparian development permit area guidelines for the development of both docks and moorage facilities. The existing Bamfield OCP already has dock regulations in place within the coastal riparian development permit area, and these amendments would intend to better align the DP guidelines with the provincial regulations, which have been updated since the OCP was adopted in 2014, and would also better align with the DP guidelines that we've included within the zoning bylaw as well. Another aspect of the development permit area for the coastal riparian area is that we have proposed to extend that from 15 meters to 30 meters into the foreshore area. We've also proposed to reduce the minimum lot size in the resource use designation from 20 hectares to 16 hectares, and that's to align with the resource zoning in the draft zoning bylaw. The resource uses in the OCP are the most remote uses within the OCP area, so a lot of the big forestry plots and things like that. We have standardized policy wording across all 6 of the OCPs where appropriate. Each of the OCPs were developed at different times, so part of this process is to align the wording throughout. We've updated Local Government Act references. The Local Government Act actually changed since this OCP was adopted in 2014, so that's another thing that we've been able to do. We've updated Agricultural Land Commission references, but noting again that in Bamfield there is no land in the Agricultural Land Reserve, so it won't have an impact in the Bamfield area. We've included a statement about the consideration of the housing needs reports, which were completed by the ACRD in 2020, and there's a housing needs report in Bamfield as well. We've revised the wording in the definitions to align with the zoning bylaw again, and highlights here include the definitions for accessory dwelling units, flood construction levels, home occupations, and home industry. We've revised the flood construction level guidelines in the natural hazard development permit areas to also better align with what we have in the proposed zoning bylaw. And finally, we've updated the land use and the development permit area maps to better utilize our new GIS mapping database and platform that we have. So the maps have a new map format, new legend format, improved labeling throughout, and data source tracking to help improve readability of those maps. So we're excited about that aspect. There is, just to highlight some background information we have linked on the website, there's a background memo that was considered by the board in April that details the highlights of the OCP amendments to date or that we've proposed. We also have on the website linked a line-by-line list of the amendments that are included within P1445, if you want to look at those, a consolidated version of the OCP text incorporating these proposed amendments or additions, and then the updated land use and development permit maps as well. I want to also quickly highlight the agency referrals that we've received on this bylaw to date. We have a copy of all of the responses received, and a summary table of the responses is available for public review on the ACRD website that I mentioned earlier, and will be part of the public hearing report that will be considered by the board. All in all, we had 22 agency and First Nations responses received in total, which is great to see. The agency responses we received either noted they were in support of the bylaw, subject to reasons outlined in their responses, noted that their interests were unaffected, or that they had no concerns, comments, or objections. 5 of the agencies that you will see in there and First Nations responded with requests to meet for future longer-term planning and discussions and a deeper dive into community planning in general in those areas, or they asked questions for clarification or noted concerns as outlined in their responses. So staff have engaged individually with each of these agencies, and their comments that we've received today are summarized in that referral agency and First Nation table that I mentioned. And then finally, the referral request that was sent out indicated that if no response was received by the referral deadline, it would be assumed that their agency or First Nations interests are unaffected in the proposed bylaw. So no communication was received from 17 of those agencies who were sent a referral. So we will continue to engage with them throughout the zoning bylaw review project, but no response was received ahead of this public hearing for these bylaw amendments. And then finally, the last thing I just want to mention is that there was no letters of correspondence received from the public ahead of this public hearing that related to this OCP amendment bylaw. So we don't have any letters to share for you. But I think that's it for me, and I will pass it back to you, Bob.
Thank you very much. Now I'm just looking at my script that I'm to follow, and just want to get clarification. Item number 13 is listen to public presentations. So I assume that we have no formal public presentations. But is this the time when we would be expecting folks would have questions and comments that would raise it at this point?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, now's a great time for that.
Okay. Well, I'm looking to see if anyone is raising their hand or coming on board. I'll just start off with a couple of things that tweaked my mind as you were, explaining what some of the minor amendments are. As you'll recall, and I do see your hand up, Stella. I'll get back to you in just a second. Then I do see that the amendment with respect to docks and in DP areas, development permit areas, it's a sensitive area or issue for Bamfield, given our lack of moorage. These amendments will not affect existing docks. Is that correct, Alex?
Yes, that's correct. They are intended for new dock construction. So not intending to go after existing docks that are there. And then just to highlight what the regulations are, we do have dock regulations in the development permit already. But what we've done is we've amended the guidelines to better align with the general permission and the specific permission that are now highlighted by the province, and then also to talk a little bit about group moorage and commercial moorage as well, because we know that Bamfield has a lot of that, and obviously a huge need for additional group moorage. We also have some highlights in there about dock construction as well, so some more guidelines about the use of styrofoam floats, as well as the placement of docks on sensitive areas. So that is something that we have heard from everybody throughout, that we don't want to create barriers for dock access in Bamfield, because it is definitely needed, but highlighting that it has to be built in the right way and in a way that doesn't negatively impact fish habitat is the intent anyways.
Thanks, Alex. So I'm going to stop with my comments and go to Stella. Go ahead, Stella, please.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, great. Okay.
Yes, we can.
I have two comments. And my dad's here, so you might throw one more in, but definitely I'll get these two first. One is the 15 where you've increased the distance that we can build on our properties from 15 meters to 30 meters. Is that correct?
So what we've actually done is we have an area that extends 15 meters into the foreshore. So not on the upland portion, but 15 meters from the natural boundary of the foreshore into the water. And so we've extended that from 15 to 30 meters, and that encompasses the docks and storage facilities and breakwaters and things like that. That's the intent there. It's not increasing the number that extends into the upland portion of the property.
So that's not affecting construction, like for houses or something like that are too close to the water?
There would be no changes that are proposed for that, no.
Okay. What do you know what that is now? Just a minute, perhaps. Because that's a thing that really impacts development in Bamfield, because everyone has such small waterfront properties.
Yeah. So my apologies, Stella. Now that we're looking at it, so we currently have the 15 meter measured both landward and seaward, and we're increasing that to 30 meters.
That's what I read. Yeah.
It does extend it up to 30 meters.
So still 15 meters on the land?
Yes, so, and no 30 meters on the land.
30
So
meters on
what's proposed in the bylaw amendment, and to highlight what that means, it's not necessarily a no build. It's not a minimum building setback or anything. It's an area that if you develop, build, or alter the land within there, you need to engage a professional biologist or a qualified environmental professional to assess what you're doing before you do it. So they, what we look for is a development permit application with a report from a biologist with positive recommendations on how to build in a way that it is sensitive to the ecosystem there, and we'll make recommendations on how to do so. But it's not necessarily a prohibition on building.
So it's not an actual hard set limit. It's something that can be negotiated depending on how sensitive your ecosystem is where you built your property or where you're intending to build.
That's correct. Yes, it's intended to just flag that as an area that needs to be assessed by a biologist, and they'll make recommendations on it. But it's not a hard
building setback.
No, there's none. I'm sorry, I'm answering my dad. He's like, so there's no building setback. It's negotiable. Negotiable.
30 meters.
30. It's 15 meters, and it's depends on the property. Like it depends on what. Sorry, I can. The other comment I wanted to make was just I don't know, and this is to you too, Bob. I feel like there's a lack of and this was also to do with the election on Friday. And I know, Bob, you told us that there was an election on Friday, but there was lack of signage, there was lack of information in town about it, and I just it worries me because the ACRD is our link to local governance, and I really appreciate the work you guys do, and I'd love to be able to provide my feedback and just to be informed on what's going on. So I want to see more effort on that if I can, without being critical. Just how.
I think let me jump in,
Yeah.
staff, if you don't mind, and Stella. I feel terrible about not bringing up the this public hearing until last night. In an ideal world, I should have had this. Should have identified this at the last Bamfield Community Affairs meeting. So that would give us roughly a month lead time. And the same thing going back to the election. I did at the community affairs identify that I was going to be acclaimed because no one was running against me, but I did mention that this is a time to take a look at the trustees that are running and get involved in considering SD 70 candidates. And I think I can do a better job, especially through community affairs. I think that is a great venue. As I mentioned last night, and I just touched on it briefly, the ACRD does not use social media for formal communications, and especially with public hearings. And I think that's for the directors and staff to have a discussion about where do we want to go with communicating down the road, because the cork board, everybody uses the cork board here. There are, as staff pointed out to me, some challenges, especially with public hearings, because comments have to be responded to, questions have to be answered, and right now there isn't a process where staff are using that medium for communications. But I absolutely agree with you, Stella. I think I can do a better job moving forward. Having said that, when it comes to the election, I would have liked to have thought that everyone recognized that October 15th was election day, but not everyone is connected to the computer, or not everyone is as passionate about politics as some other folks are. But it is important that we know what's going on. And so again, thank you for bringing that forward. It's a reminder to me to how can I provide that conduit, representing the ACRD. And I don't know, I'm going to turn to Mike and not put him on the spot, but if you've got any comments, Mike, moving forward, because, what was, and, tomorrow's another day. How do we make it better?
And certainly, so, and just thanks, Stella, for the comment, and Bob. We have a recently hired a communications person for the ACRD. In the past, we haven't had that, and we are working on how we can better communicate those things. And public hearings, they're very prescriptive as far as how we have to do it, but we can do additional advertising or comments. So we'll certainly give that thought and appreciate that feedback. And we do want to regularly communicate with, especially places like Bamfield and Long Beach that are, they don't necessarily receive the same newspaper, advertising and things like that. So that's something we will work on. And if you have any ideas or feedback, you're welcome to send them to myself or any of the other staff, because we want to do that. That's the purpose of public hearings, is to make sure people find out about it and then provide their input. So thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And Stella, I take full responsibility. My goal should have been, as I said, to have this out a month ago at Community Affairs, and hopefully my workload. I didn't run for school board trustee for SD 62 because I did not want both responsibilities, and I'm hoping by not having that, I can apply myself even more for this beautiful community of Bamfield.
Oh, we all appreciate the good job you do. I don't mean to be critical.
No, not at all. Yeah, no criticism taken here.
If I may jump in for just 1 second here, just to keep happy. Can we get your address as well, Stella, for the minutes?
Yeah, it's 314 Tower Road.
Okay. Thank you very much.
So the other thing, while we're waiting, in case Stella or Dad has some other comments or questions, Alex or staff, and I don't mean to pick on Alex. I don't know Alex, Amy, or Mike, but just talk to me a little bit about the housing needs aspect and how that's being incorporated. And again, like moorage, housing is absolutely a critical issue for our community and many others. So by incorporating that in as a minor amendment, what does that do for us moving forward, especially in light of the fact that we're going to be doing a comprehensive review of the OCP down the road?
Yeah, that's a great comment, Bob, and I really appreciate it. So the Local Government Act now requires that we consider housing needs reports in the development of new OCPs. So recognizing that is the next step for this community. Once we complete the zoning bylaw review project, we are intending to update each of the 6 OCPs more comprehensively. So what we've done is we've included a statement in each of the existing OCPs, recognizing that housing needs reports have been completed in each of those communities, and focusing on the key recommendations and a high-level approach that is in each of those housing needs reports to address housing gaps in Bamfield. So right now, it very much is a high-level visionary type of policy, not an action-oriented. But when we get to the stage where we can develop a new comprehensive update for the Bamfield OCP, we will be not only required to, but we're looking forward to incorporating some actual actionable recommendations on what we do about housing. And a lot of those recommendations had dealt with an increase in the diversity of housing. I know that's something that we lacked in a lot of the rural areas, and greater access to things like rental accommodation and affordable housing and supportive housing that are all really important things to deal with in an OCP. So right now it's a high level approach. In the near future, we look forward to having a more specific discussion about where we go with housing. And that's work that as planners that we're excited to get to at some point. So we hope that'll come shortly after the completion of the zoning bylaw project.
Thank you. My next question is relating to you're doing 6 minor reviews right now. And how do they differ? And again, the reason I ask that question is each community is very distinct in having their own nuances, needs, wants. And can you just speak to, so that I've got a sense that when I'm talking to the community, that this isn't one size fits all, and what have staff done to recognize, that we're a distinct community?
Yeah, no, that's also great, and I can give a quick outline of how the each area will differentiate. When we develop the Alberni Valley, so we have 4 OCPs in the Alberni Valley: Beaver Creek, Cherry Creek, Beaufort, and Sprout Lake. Develop them all as part of one project, so they are very similar in wording. There are some unique aspects in Sprout Lake regarding dock regulations and things like that are less prevalent in areas that don't have water, but they all have similar minimum lot sizes in residential use areas and so on. When we get into South Long Beach OCP, we have in the Long Beach area, that's our oldest OCP now, so that's back to 2007 when we adopted that one, and there's a lot. The policies are quite different, and the minimum lot sizes are actually quite different in that zone. And aspects such as accessory dwelling units weren't quite as well thought out back then, so we've made a lot of updates on where you're allowed a secondary home and what those minimum lot sizes will look like for development in areas in South Long Beach. We've made some changes to that. And then getting to Bamfield, the biggest aspect that was unique in Bamfield and was included in the 2014 OCP is a recognition that Bamfield is really its own service center, right? I mean, the rural areas in the Alberni Valley are serviced by amenities that are located within the city of Port Alberni, and Long Beach is the same with Euclid and Tofino out there. So Bamfield is on its own. It also has unique abilities for servicing. There is there's a water system in the community, and then a potential for a future sewer system as well. And what we had done is we included a reduced minimum lot size in Bamfield that would go even smaller than the 0.24 of a hectare that we have everywhere else, if a lot is connected to community water and sewer. So that's one example of Bamfield being different. We also have a mixed use designation in the Bamfield area where we, rather than separate out residential and commercial like we do in other areas, we came up with an idea to blend the two together essentially. So small scale commercial lodge type uses or small scale retail uses paired with housing. And that's something we see a lot of in Bamfield, and we want to make sure that keeps moving forward. So those main sort of themes and aspects of those OCPs are remaining the same. What we've proposed to update are, as I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation here, that aligning wording and aligning those policies with both what we propose in the zoning and also what's out there in the provincial regulations now. Then also take a site-specific look at each community where they have water. We've updated the dock regulations where they have more rural type of development in the ALR in the Alberni Valley. We have some more agriculture specific uses and so on. So hopefully that's a big long rambling answer for what the differences are, but we do look forward to having an individual public hearing like this for each of those 6 OCPs, and to have a bit more of a community input on that's specific to each of those areas, and have a bit of a discussion around that, and then focus all that into one zoning bylaw that would be implemented throughout the ACRE, which is what we currently have, and then really looking forward to diving into those comprehensive updates, which as I mentioned, we expect will follow the completion this project. And that's really where we look into where these communities want to go in the next 10, 15, 25 years kind of thing. And those are the conversations that are exciting for us, and hopefully people will be excited to be a part of them once we get there anyways.
Thank you. Well, I know the community is looking forward to really delving in to the OCP, which is a great segue into. Can you just give us an overview of next steps with respect to the minor amendments, the zoning bylaw, and then the time frame after that for the major OCP review?
Yes, absolutely. So the beginning of that answer, I'll highlight that we have updated the zoning bylaw review website. So if you go to acrd.bc.ca/ZB review, you'll find the most recent information we have for the 6 OCP amendments, the current draft of the zoning bylaw, which was published in the first week of October, and the latest version of maps, as well as anticipated timeline. So where we're at with the overall project, this is the first of our OCP amendment public hearings. So we anticipate holding an additional 5 public hearings throughout the remainder of this year and into the new year. And then our goal and our anticipated timeline at this stage is to have a completed zoning bylaw draft that would be ready for the board's consideration in the first quarter of 2023. So at some point over late winter, beginning of spring. And then once the board considers that first reading, we would send out an agency referral, much like we did for these OCPs, schedule a public hearing for sometime in the spring to speak to the zoning bylaw itself and to gather final input on that, bring that report back to the board, and then have the board make a final decision on the zoning bylaw, and with an anticipation that that'll happen in spring 2023. And then following that, that's when we'll have the capacity and the ability to start looking into those comprehensive updates. And we don't have a firm plan of what that will look like, but we do know we will be working on all 6 of them, and we don't have the layout of how each one of those will go yet, but we have said before that we do anticipate that Bamfield will be one of the first, if not the first, that we work on, recognizing that there are some changes that have happened in Bamfield since 2014, obviously, as you're all aware, and some more changes that we anticipate will be happening in the future. So that's something that we look forward to working on 2023 if all goes well with the zoning bylaw. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, it does. Absolutely. And I can't help but think I'm looking at and to Stella that at one of the upcoming Bamfield Community Affairs meetings, it would be great to have Alex or Amy or Mike do a little presentation, not getting into all the nitty-gritties and details, but just sharing that same kind of understanding, moving forward. This is what the community can expect. This is why we're doing what we're doing, to get buy-in from the community, to give the community affairs a rough idea of next steps. So I don't know how you think about that, Stella, but the more communications, the better, I think, for the.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Totally agree. I'll put it on the list.
Thank you. Now, just checking, we only see Stella on. Is there any other questions or comments that are coming through from the public on the other venue?
We do have Stefan Oakman on the line as well. So if Stefan, if you can hear us and you're able to unmute, then you're welcome to ask any questions if you like.
No, I don't really have a question. I just wanted to find out what was happening, and you guys summarized it really well. The OCP and the bylaws, and no further questions until, you know, there's some more meat around the bone, so to speak.
Thank you
Thank
for
you for the presentation.
Thank you, Stefan, for coming on. I didn't see you till now. I'm glad you joined in. I'm not sure how much more meat there's going to be on the bones as we're getting near the end of the presentation, unless Stella or her dad had some more questions, or if there's something else from the planning staff that they want to share with us before I get down to wrapping.
The meat on the bones, Bob, was later on, like in a few months, when there's what Alex was talking about with the specifics for the OCP, how that's going to change. That's what I was interested in.
Yeah, thank you. And again, I think that before we get there, if we can get staff to join us on a community affairs meeting, just to give a bit of a very quick overview, almost a review of what we've done tonight, and just some dates and targets moving forward. But if there's nothing else, I'm going to go to item number 15 on the agenda. And that's for me to please be advised that members of the board of directors cannot receive new information related to this bylaw between the end of this hearing and making a final decision on the bylaw. If any board member does so, the hearing could be invalidated and would have to be held again. And I'd like to just ask Mike, can you explain what that means, Mike? Because I know the board recently had some challenges with that. And just for Stella, her dad, and Stefan, that would be great, please.
Yeah. And really, so I mean, I guess the first thing would be if any members of the public or anybody has any concerns or questions about this bylaw now and the minor amendments that are proposed, contact staff first. So the board can't formally receive new information. We certainly encourage people to reach out to staff. That doesn't apply to us. We can answer any questions. We can provide any feedback, things like that. So we don't want to have formal presentations. So for example, if before this bylaw was adopted, we wouldn't want staff to come and present and talk about the OCP amendments that happened in here at a public affairs meeting, for example. So that could happen after adoption of this bylaw. So I think that's, and we wouldn't want a delegation from Bamfield to come and present to the board before adoption of the bylaw, unless there was some information, say that we reviewed as staff and felt it was really pertinent. To do that, we would recommend another public hearing in that case, right? So, that's where that goes around. So we would. Hopefully that explains it. I think the best thing would be if somebody, one of your neighbors from Stefan or Stella, had questions or comments about that, reach out to staff and we can answer them and go from there. So the director shouldn't be receiving emails, correspondence, and we absolutely cannot be receiving any delegations from at a board meeting, for example.
Thanks, Mike. And with that in mind, does anyone have any final comments?
No.
Hearing none. Oh, sorry. Stefan, were you going to say something?
I said no.
Okay, then I will call for the first time for any further representations on the bylaw. I will call for the second time for any representations on the bylaw. I will call for a third time for any further representations on the bylaw. Hearing no further comments, I declare this meeting terminated, but not before I acknowledge and thank Stefan, Stella, and her dad for joining us tonight, and of course for Kathy, Mike, Amy, and Alex for their efforts and work leading up to and including this evening's presentation. So with that, I bid you adieu. Have a wonderful evening,